COO and founder of Netki. I am going to cover a lot of subject matter and do a data dump pretty fast. So if you need any follow-up, I will be here the rest of the day, either in the audience or on the show floor. You can also find me at Dawn M. Newton on Twitter, and the company is Netki Corp. So before we get started, I wanted to talk a little bit about what my background is. I was the first person on either side of my parental chain to go to college, and it was going to be on full scholarship. And I was in my third semester of my freshman year when I decided to drop out because I was bored out of my skull. And I wanted to go work with computers. My parents were thrilled. And when I say thrilled, I mean pissed. So pissed. And I was trying to explain why I thought this stuff was so cool. I mean, computers can talk to computers. Like, how awesome is that? And my mother would say, why would anybody want that? So she said that to me when I was at Microcom, which was one of the first modem manufacturers. And she said that to me when I went to Interaccess, which was an ISP based in Chicago that had that covered the tri-state area. And she said it to me some more when I went to Net Zero because they had this idea that the internet should be free for everyone. And funnily enough, it was founded by a bunch of guys from the gas company, not techies. So I was hired with inside the industry number 2 to actually build it out. When I got there, we had 4 people working in support operations. And when I left, I had over 1,500 people reporting into me. When I got there, we had 600,000 users. And when I left, we had 12 million. How long did that take? I was only there for 3 years. That's some rapid growth. And that's what we're going to see with blockchain and Bitcoin. So one of the things that gets talked about a lot in the industry when people are up here is that we're in 1995 and 1996 internet. And I will have to respectfully disagree since I was actually there. And I understand where there's confusion. They're saying that, there's mass market awareness back to 95 and 96 levels. And that's factually correct. That is true. But the thing that's different from then till now is the internet. Information moves that much faster and is distributed that much faster. So I don't think that's an accurate benchmark. The other thing that they say is venture capital money is in at 1995 and 1996 levels. Again, factually correct and very accurate, but 2 things happened since that time. The internet and then the app revolution. So the money's there faster. So where do I think we are? I think we're in 1992. Dawson brought up yesterday when he showed the curve of bringing in a new technology and adoption that we are in the innovator stage, super early. And that's exactly where we are. And I wanted to bring up an example for that. Some of you may know Dirk Hondell. He's a Linux geek extraordinaire, developer of Subservice, and part of Geek Divers, which I'm a part of, which is old school internet and open source geeks. We all go diving together when we want to make sure no cell phones will work anywhere. So 2 years ago, I talked to him about Bitcoin and the blockchain. And he's brilliant. And he was skeptical. He said, no, it's not going to happen. It's never going to make it past the fringe. But as all geeks will do, they read up, they get data, they analyze, they tinker, they think about it. So since that time, Dirk's changed his mind, and he's now one of our advisors and advising us on open source and making sure our stuff is open source, but giving us contacts in the open source community. And now he's become a Bitcoin blockchain advocate. So now, if we're going to talk about that we're in 1992, what are some of the lessons that I can bring to tell you about that was really happening in 1992? So, what matters? Americans love to compete. We've got sports, good Lord, we've made politics a throwdown competition. But, sorry, thank you. But we can't compete right now. Right now, it's all about building consistency and collaboration. We need to do that through collaboration. So Sam yesterday talked about it when he talked about Open Bazaar. He has Open Bazaar, and he has a competitor called, and I just blanked out, Bitmarkets. So he actually said yesterday really quickly that he and his team are talking to the team at Bitmarkets. They're competitors, but not now, they're not. Right now, they're focused on building the ecosystem, and that's what we need to all do, is think about building this thing so that we all have a bigger pie. So we want to make sure that the user experience looks, feels, and is the same. How do we go about that? Well, you want to focus on what you do best. Don't try to be all things to all users. Find your core competency, know what it is, and focus on it. Then turn around and look throughout the industry for partners who also do one thing and do one thing really well, and partner with them. One of the people that we're talking to right now, or companies, is Keykeeper. And we don't know right now whether both of our products will work well together, but we like what they're doing and they like what we're doing. And so we're going to think about it and figure out if we can actually work together and build something that will make each of our products stronger. The other thing I want to talk about quick is if you don't have the expertise within your organization, that's fine. Look throughout the ecosystem to find what you need. My co-founder and I, DNSSEC geeks, internet geeks, not blockchain geeks. We don't know it that well, we're new. So we knew we were weak there, and we wanted to find somebody who had that level of expertise, and so and also believed in our product. So the one company plug that I'm going to announce, and it was really sad that he wasn't here because he was supposed to be up here before me, but Jeff Garzik agreed to join our board. So that's our big announcement. So it's nice to have somebody within the industry that sees what we're doing and believes in it, and is going to be on our advisory board to help us where we don't have an area of expertise. So next, what else went on? Security. So one of the things that you'll find if you talk to any of the old school internet geeks is that we made a mistake, and it was a pretty huge one. And everybody is paying the price for that today. And I'm sure you all realize what I'm talking about. It's encryption. We could have encrypted. We knew we should have. But we had so much to do because this thing was building so rapidly and people were coming on so fast that we had to focus on keeping the thing up, and it wouldn't stay up a lot of times. It was really Band-Aids and paper clips, and it was MacGyver time. And by the time we finally got things stable, we really couldn't go back, because when every single ISP has got 5 million, 10 million, 15 million users, imagine drastically changing their experience and what that would do. And we thought, and I'll be honest, we were idealists and somewhat naive. We thought, PGP's out there. If a customer is sending something that should be confidential or something that they, might not want somebody to see, they'll just encrypt it. And I see the three faces laughing. Yeah, it's laughable now, but it's also tragic. So one thing that you can't sacrifice this time around is security. Make it secure, and that's paramount. If you know you need to do something, do it then, because you're not gonna have the time to do it later. Features, bugs. That's a dance. Every developer hates bugs. It makes them itch, okay? And they want to fix them, and I get that. You don't like crappy code, sloppy code. But what you need to do as you're building something that's going to be adopted by a mass market, is think about it from a cost and a financial perspective. You've got to look at a bug and say, how many users is it going to affect? How many could possibly leave? How many support tickets is it going to generate? Those are all costs. But then conversely, what about a feature set? How many new customers is that going to get you? How many upsells is that going to get you? That's got to be a mathematical equation, and you've got to take the emotions out of it. intel. You're gonna need to pivot and pivot and pivot some more. We've seen in the news all over the place that companies are pivoting like crazy lately. Move, 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 change, change, change. Well, you know what's gonna happen? You're gonna have your team moving full steam ahead, have a project at 80% completion, and then say, oh yeah, drop that. Now you're onto this. That's fine, and it's something you absolutely positively need to do, but there's also one thing you need to do when that happens, is explain the why. Take the time to let them know why you needed to change. Because otherwise, they're gonna think that you have schizophrenia, or that you're a cat with a shiny ball and you just can't focus on any one thing, and that becomes very frustrating to them. Divergent. You're gonna need two specific teams that are divergent. Your product managers and your project managers. Because they need to be of two mindsets. They need to grok the business, and they need to absolutely positively grok the tech. Because they need to be the advocate for the tech teams to the business, and vice versa. Now, if you could have somebody in sales or biz dev that wants to grok the tech, awesome, it happens. Add those people to the staff, and there's definitely technical people that want to understand the business. More staff, thank you community. You know what that is. None of those, please. And also, no naysayers, no negative Nellies. When you've got your team clocking 50, 60, 70, and yes, sometimes 80 hours in a work week, and they are moving like a fine-tuned bullet train right to goal, you do not need somebody that's like, oh, yeah, that was a mistake. You don't need that. That's demoralizing, and it takes the entire team and knocks them right off the rails. So the one thing that you need to do is you can't take the time, no matter, even if you see that this person has great potential, you do not have the time right now to be a career counselor. So the one thing I would say is fire faster. The other thing you need to do is hire smarter. Everybody knows, and it's standard now, the boss just doesn't interview people. The teams do, the team that they work in. I would say try to go one step further. Have your marketing person interview a developer. Have your ops guy interview sales. Because you need to make sure that they fit into, not only that they have the knowledge that they're supposed to that's in their wheelhouse, that's great, but they need to be part of the corporate culture. Because what you don't want to have is turnover at this time. You really need to be able to focus on building rather than scrambling to get people in a slot, and when you scramble, they don't wind up staying. So hire women. This is the one time I'm going to give you some data points. Companies with 15% women in their management team, 15% or greater of women in their management team, see a 50% increase in ROE. And this is from Credit Suisse. And companies with at least one female board member outperform those with none by 26% on the stock market from the same study. Boris Wertz, who's the founder of Version 1 Ventures, that women-run tech companies bring in a 35% higher ROI, and First Round Capital announces that businesses with at least one female founder have a 63% better margin than all-male teams. So long story short, hire us, because we kick ass too. Appreciate. You know, one thing that's common now is that, you know, everybody's doing catered lunches and everybody's doing beer Fridays. Those are awesome. But you know, nothing hurts somebody more than when they're buying into your vision and they are literally kind of almost dedicating their lives to your company to not get their review 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 months later. And I've seen it happen. And it happened a lot back in the day. That's where, you know, they know that you're so busy, they won't complain, but they'll look elsewhere. So if you can focus on one thing, I tell people, like, just make sure your management team starts working on reviews 2 months before they're due, and literally make them check in with you, that every week they're getting X% done so that the reviews can, and the raises can happen on time. Benchmark. So everybody benchmarks within their own industry. Yeah, wallet providers look at wallet providers, exchange exchanges look at other exchanges. You know to do that. That's common sense. But what you should do is what you should also do is look outside of your industry, okay? When I was on the internet, I was looking at AOL and CompuServe, but like, come on, really? You know, they had a few things, but for the most part, I didn't like what they were doing. So the company that I looked at was FedEx. They have an awesome user experience. I mean, yeah, they mess up every once in a great while, but ease of use, going online, filling out the forms, piece of cake, getting someone there, they're there usually on time, getting it delivered, easy peasy, tracking, you can see where it's going as it hits every stop. An amazing, amazing customer experience, and that's who I benchmark, which was odd, for an ISP, but not really. So if you're a wallet provider, look at Starbucks. Does anybody know how many people they have on that app? The number? It's 12 million. So that's a lot. So look at what they're doing, because you know that they have big money in R&D. So they've done the work for you. Less lingo. I don't know what we're going to do about that. But the normals, when they hear crypto, when they hear trustless, I mean, we get it. Eric said it, we get what trustless means, but think what that means to a normal. Trust less. Yeah, that's not going to hunt if we want this to go mainstream. So we need to figure out words that are approachable, that make sense to somebody who's not in our industry. We have an image problem. Mount Gox, Silk Road. So, when people come up to you and say, you say you're in Bitcoin and you get the obvious, ooh, you know what? Don't say but. Forget that. Ask them if they're on the internet. And they're gonna look at you like you just grew 7 heads. And like, huh? Do the little dog tip. Remind them, in 1992, before the internet went mainstream, who was on it? I'll tell you. Pornographers, gamblers, drug dealers, and gun runners. Because every single new technology will have the fringe adopt first, because they need to stay one step ahead of the game, and you're providing a service that they can actually use. I went and said this at a banking conference in Vancouver with bankers and the feds in the room. And the feds started laughing, because they know that truly is. So this is an amazing technology, and it will go mainstream, just like the internet did, but people have a hard time. They forget history, which is actually a good thing for us as well, because all of that stuff will go away as we get more people on the system. So one of the things I wanted to talk about was, what can we do to fix our image? And there's a couple of things. We need to focus on, as a group, getting legislators and regulators to understand what it is that we're doing. I was on the board of the ISPC, which was the Internet Service Providers Consortium, and we had a public policy branch that went out and spoke to regulators and the federal government. And Perry Ann gave me such a perfect layup, and I had never even met her before. But yeah, we did get moratoriums because we were explaining. So we had the Internet Tax Freedom Act. We had a moratorium way back that we would not be taxed, and they wanted to tax us. If they had taxed us, we wouldn't be here, because we would have had to pass the tax on to the consumers, and consumers wouldn't pay that. Back in that day, AOL was charging $30 a month for dial-up. Could you imagine adding tax onto that? No, it wouldn't have worked. The other thing that we did was, where is it? Oh, the Spam Act. The Spam Act inside it actually, in the very beginning, when it was first drafted, was going to ban online anonymity in total. ISPs were going to have to validate that you were who you said you were, and you were going to have to identify yourself as you on the internet. So think about that. Blockchain would be a little different today if that had passed. But thankfully, through the ISPC, we lobbied against it. We sat down, got regulators to understand why it was a problem, and they deleted that section of the bill. So they're not unreasonable, but you need to have a reasonable voice and a large enough voice. So the last thing is net neutrality. Net neutrality was actually won because Joe User was on our side. And eventually that's where I'd like to see blockchain. The other thing I'd like is, I think that is a good thing to do, is to become your local industry expert. You are the local industry expert, right? So do up a bio and get it out to newspapers, radio, TV, any of the local stuff, and tell them that you'll go down to their offices and do a talk. Educate them on Bitcoin and the blockchain. Okay, no worries. So if you educate them on the Bitcoin and blockchain, then you can also turn around, and when there's news that's national, if you have a local spin on it because you know what's going on in the local industry, you can let them know and they can report on it. So we have to actually try to change what's going on in the media and get them to see Bitcoin for the good it can do and not just focus on the bad. So the other thing is, I was going to show a Dune photo. He's putting his hand in the box. So fear's the mind killer. Everybody has fear, and it's something that it doesn't get talked about much when you're doing things like this and building massive new technologies that could change the world. So everyone experiences fear. There's titans of industry, world leaders, famous performers, geniuses. They all do. But what do they do differently? What did they do differently? They push through it. There's going to be times when you really feel like it's all going to go to hell in a handbasket. There's going to be times, probably several, when you're just barely making payroll. And you really don't want your team to know that because you don't want them to have fear. Just remember to push through it, because think about it. What's the worst thing that can happen? Okay, you have to close the company. Okay, you all have to go back to working at big corporations and 9-to-5 jobs for a little while you regroup. That's not horrible. It's not the end of the world. So keep pushing forward. And last thing is, every single person in this room has the ability to be part of creating this ecosystem. And it literally is going to change the world. We can't be stopped. What the internet did for information, the Bitcoin blockchain is going to do for finance. But we have a massive, massive amount of work to do. And so, in closing, in the words of Captain Picard, let's make it so.